Hey guys, Timothy Roberts here. In this video, I am officially announcing a new cymbal line that I am calling the Acacia. Now, acacia is a type of tree, and it's got some cool meanings. It's got a cool significance to it. If you look that up on Google, you can see what that is. But that's the name I landed on for the new line of unlathed and partially lathed cymbals through Timothy Roberts Cymbals. I have had a cymbal that utilized the oxide crust, which is what comes on the surface when it comes out of the oven at the foundry. It's tin oxide, it's brown, it's got lots of other colors in it as well. It's a surface that then gets shaved away on the lathe. So I've had cymbals with some variation of this design ever since I started making cymbals. It started out with the Acacia series, that morphed into the Foundation series, and then when I started the Reverie cymbal brand, which is my slightly lower price point handmade cymbal, I moved the Foundation over to that brand because it felt like it fit more with the aesthetic and the vibe of those cymbals. And so it left a gap in my personal Timothy Roberts cymbal catalog. And I've been working on this idea of something new, and it's here. It's called the Acacia, and I have 3 Acacia rides in front of me that we'll talk about. And we'll talk a little bit more about the vibe you can expect with these cymbals. In essence, you get dry sounds when you utilize the unlathed crust. They have very little wash, and they tend to have, in my opinion, a lot of the ones that are made tend to have a pretty one-dimensional sound. You get a wonderful smoky stick definition, but you lose a lot of other things that a lathed cymbal typically has. You lose top-end sibilance, you lose a little bit of life in the mid and upper frequency range. And so whenever I've made unlathed cymbals, I've always wanted them to have a little bit extra going on and not be quite so much like a traditional Turk style cymbal. I just did a video on it that I released, and I talk all about the process of making this cymbal and how it was a very unique thing, and I'll link that below. Totally unlathed top and bottom, doesn't even have any burnishing, literally just hammering a blank produced this sound. And what's cool about it is the way that I did it allows for there to be that breath and that life in the sound. I've also added 2 other Acacia series. The one on my left here is another 22. It weighs 2,037 grams, crazy thin. And it has 6 brass rivets in it. And then the one that I just was talking about is a 22, and it's 2,277 grams. And then this one on the far right represents a cymbal that's a little bit more kind of in between fully Turk and lathe. It's got a lathed underside, Turk top or unlathed top with some lathing on the bell and out at the edge. And it's a 22 that weighs 2,421 grams. So I will play the demos of these cymbals. You'll see them up close and personal, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the character that these cymbals have. All right, so as I play the one in my main position here, the 22-inch at 2,277 grams, this is a very thin weight for a 22. Not quite as thin as this guy, but very, very thin. And so it's going to live more in the medium low to low volume music settings. Studio settings are great with this kind of thing. But what I love most about this cymbal is the crash. And I love the high frequency nature that it has. Like, it's got all these high frequencies and all this life and this shimmer to it that you wouldn't expect it to have. And part of that is due to not processing it as much. I don't have as much hammering on there. It's a medium shape. It's not super low. It's not super tall. But it has unprocessed bronze that those vibrations can kind of move through in a way that's allowing that kind of life to it. I love the sound of this cymbal. Then let's go over to the far right. This guy, the one that has the partially lathed surfaces, it has a bigger bell. It's got a taller shape to it. But this represents kind of the Acacia sound that's way more on the open side. It almost sounds like it's fully lathed top and bottom. If anything, it has like kind of a sense of it being a little bit controlled, like you crash it and it goes right back to the stick, which I like. But it's not, it's kind of tricking you into thinking that it's an unlathed, or that it has an unlathed surface, because it really sounds pretty open and resonant. If we look over to my left, your right, we have the thinnest one of the bunch. This one is also fully unlathed, top and bottom. I have burnished it, so it does have like the scratch. It looks like little spiral scratches. That's where you use a blunt tool. And this one is thinner than I ever want a 22 to be, and which is why I left the crust fully on it, because it needed every bit of control that it could have. And then adding the 6 brass rivets actually helps to contain it even more. So you can have a nice present stick definition with a cymbal like this, but it is definitely a cymbal that you want to use like a nylon tip with, or like a really pointed tip, to get a sense of attack out of it because of how thin it is. I'm playing this with like essentially an SD2 and it still sounds awesome, but I would use this in much more of a low volume situation. And then at a certain point, you hear the rivets, the weight of the rivets kind of just stop the sustain. And so that's a cool thing about having rivets in the cymbals. You can actually use it to control the tone of a cymbal, especially if you've got a little bit of a wild child on your hands. So this is a little insight into the new series that you will start seeing in my batch drops and available for commissions. The Acacia series is going to cover the gamut of different sizes and weights and all kinds of different specs. Let me know what you think of this sound. I know this is a sound that a lot of guys want these days. I know I typically don't gravitate towards it, which is kind of the reason why I wanted to have a series, because if I can kind of capture the sound and really get a sound that I like from a cymbal that's unlathed, then I find those challenges to be very interesting. So thank you guys for watching. Please drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of these sounds, if they're the kind of sounds you dig. Keep an eye out for the next video. My name is Timothy Roberts. See you later.